Jonathan Isaac with those quick hands. He spins, he lays it in. Brilliant move by Jonathan
He
Isaac.
can block shots. He's got the athletic ability to guard multiple positions when he gets into the NBA.
Jonathan Isaac is an impressive young guy. I say that for the basketball player that we expect him to become and the person that he is right now.
Sports and politics collided when Kaepernick refused to stand.
NBA players have been vocal about their goal of taking collective action to combat systemic racism.
Every player, every coach, even the referees, taking a knee during the national anthem, a concerted show of unity as the NBA returned with 2 games overnight and with a message and a spotlight, not just on its superstars, but social justice and racial equality.
A lot of people kind of use this analogy talking about Black Lives Matter as a movement. It's not a movement. When you black, it's not a movement. It's a lifestyle.
On Friday, Isaac got attention for choosing not to kneel in unison with his teammates or to wear a Black Lives Matter shirt.
It's just not a good look for what we trying to stand for. We are a fraternity and we are brothers.
So you didn't kneel during the anthem, but you also didn't wear a Black Lives Matter shirt. Do you believe that Black Lives Matter?
It's my thought that, kneeling or wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt don't go hand in hand with supporting Black lives.
Hello, everyone, and welcome as we tip off our live Q&A and book signing with NBA star Jonathan Judah Isaac. Hey there, Jonathan. How you doing up there?
I'm so excited for this. Let's rock.
Well, are you feeling warmed up and ready to sign some books?
Yes, I stretched. My hands are good. I'm ready to go. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Well, let's do it then. Well, the book is called Why I Stand, and in it, Jonathan tells the full story behind that fateful game day, as well as how his once fear and insecurity-driven life was transformed into one of confidence and purpose. It's really an inspiring journey filled with passages about faith, finding your courage, and for all of you fans out there, of course, a whole lot of basketball. And right now is your chance to talk to Jonathan all about it, or about anything else you want. The ball's in your court. So now to chat with Jonathan and score a limited edition autographed copy of his book, head over to premiercollectibles.com/Isaac and purchase Why I Stand before the clock runs out. Then you can shoot your questions into the chat for Jonathan to rebound right here live. So as the questions are coming up, I wanted to first ask you, Jonathan, how this book came to be and what has it been like working with the Daily Wire to get this book published and get it out into the world for everyone to really benefit from?
Yeah, so there's a specific story about how the book came to be, and I don't want to spoil it for the people who are going to buy the book and able to read it, but on one day after I left the bubble, I got injured. Doc, who you're going to learn about in the book, came over and he told me, you have to write a book and you're going to make a movie out of the book. And pretty much what he was trying to say is that people know your stand, but they do not know your story. And so that's how it came about talking about the book. And then it was actually really tough to find a publisher at first. So we had a lot of interviews and my book agent shopped it to a lot of places and we got no's. But long and behold, the Daily Wire, we were able to get on a call and talk about it and they loved it. And they're here supporting me and I appreciate it.
And, looking at the pre-sale numbers, all the other publishers were really wrong.
They missed out.
Not to pick this book up. Well, thanks for what you stand for, Jonathan. At any point during the process of writing the book, did you find yourself feeling like you weren't sure if you wanted to go through with the process or overwhelmed by the process? And how did you get through that period? And that was from David in Oklahoma.
Well, hey, David. I wouldn't say didn't want to go through with the process, but there were absolutely times where I felt overwhelmed, where looking at this book and saying, I want this thing to be so much bigger than me, but in writing it, it is so much bigger than me. And so there were times where I had to step back and just breathe and kind of take a couple of days away from writing and going it over, and then just deciding, okay, I need to get back to it. This is bigger than me. I want this book to inspire people and touch lives. And so I'll get back to it and I'll be able to write some and then have to take another break. And so, David, there were absolutely times where it was tough, but we got through it and I'm so glad that we did.
All right, so with that, I'm going to make you start signing
First
some books.
First signature.
While you're signing, I'm going to ask you a question from Tyler in Texas.
Okay.
So, what inspired you to write this book now?
Booyah. First one signed.
Nice.
Tyler, what inspired me to write this book, first off, was me just kind of going along with what Doc told me, because I know that he believed it. And so that's the first inspiration. But again, like, having people come out and say, Jonathan, you're the most courageous man in the world, you're so bold, and then having so many people that disagreed with me, the book really brings it all to life. It shows that I'm not just this perfect guy who stood in the bubble and was this most courageous guy. I have a journey. I have a story of struggling with anxiety and fear as a young kid, and ultimately becoming who I am today through a relationship with Christ, and then still being able to tell my reasoning and give who I am and my example for people who disagree with me. And so that's what inspired me to write the book, is to be able to give people an answer to why I stood. And I really do believe that the story gives the stand its backbone.
Well, and part of what I love so much was that it was a journey, that you weren't this perfectly bold Christian man from the get-go. There was a lot of struggle there. So following into that, let's follow up with a question from Sarah in Minnesota. What led to making that stand, and did you ever question after the fact? There's the big question.
Did I ever question after the fact? So first off, what led up to it is everybody knows and remembers George Floyd's tragic passing. But what I tried to do is take a step back, and talking to Doc, my pastor, my family, my wife, Takita, is take a step back and say, what is the best way for me to respond in a way that can bring real change? And there were obviously people who disagree with me, who in the moment decided to kneel and wear a t-shirt as their way to fight for change. But for me, it just wasn't. I took a step back and I looked at my life and say, my life has been changed by the gospel, by the love of Jesus Christ. And that's what I account in this book. I take you through the journey of who I am and how I became who I am. And I cannot think of a better message. I can't think of a better antidote for the times that we see other than the message of the gospel. And so even though there was immense pressure to do what everyone else was doing, although there was a narrative that I knew was going to be presented about me, and I knew I was going to get smeared and all that different stuff, I still said, and again, with the people who believed in me and trusted, I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stand on the principle. I'm going to stand on what I believe. I'm going to stand on the word of God. And it has worked out.
It has, because now you're here with me.
We're here.
And you get to sign another book.
Yes.
Here's a really good question, actually. How did your teammates and coaches react behind the scenes? That's from Sarah in Minnesota.
Sarah, you got to get the book to get all the details. I'm not going to do that to you. So it was a very heated and emotional time in our country. And even the players and the coaches were feeling, I'm sure they were feeling anxiety about the moment, because there was a sense of this is something we had to do. And so I'm sure that there was pressure. And once I was the only one to stand, it took whatever everyone was feeling to the next level, because now the media's in on it. What do you think about Jonathan's stand? What do you think about what he did? And so there was some, several heated conversations that had to happen with the team, and we were able to kind of agree to disagree. But I left them with this, y'all. I respected the fact that you decided to kneel, and you did, and I only asked for that same respect in return. You believed in what you were kneeling for, and I believed in what I was standing for, and we left it at that.
Yeah, and you stated it really well. And while Jonathan's signing the next book, I will just say that as someone who got to read it in advance, those were some really powerful passages. So I really appreciated reading about how you withstood that.
And I was going to ask you what you thought was the juiciest part. Don't give something really good away, but what part did you pause and take a step back and was just like, wow?
The moment where you got to practice and they said, we're about to have a team meeting and it's about you. So I felt like my stomach just went in knots when I read that, because that would have been so stressful for me, to know like, so everyone's been talking about me behind my back.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Another question that we have here is, were you ever scared that you were going to lose your career playing in the NBA? I know the answer to this one, so I look forward to hearing it.
That was definitely a thought that was in the back of my mind. So in the book, the night before the stand is going to happen the next day, I'm on the phone with my pastor, and I'm telling him, you do not understand how big this is going to be. They're canceling people. That's actually something he said. They're canceling people. I haven't signed my contract yet. So that's still up in the air. If this thing goes left and I'm out of the league, there goes that level of security. But again, we got off the phone and he said this to me. He said, you cannot stand for God and God not stand for you. And so we hung up the phone and left it at that. This is what we're going to do. But there were definitely moments where, even afterwards, where I was like, I don't know which way this is going to go, but I'm trusting and believing that people are going to understand the heartfelt of my message, and the people who agree with me will agree with me, and the people who disagree with me will hopefully be able to hear it and leave it at that.
And one of the things I loved was that it wasn't just you. When you called up your then girlfriend, now wife, she stood behind you too and
Yes,
said,
she
yeah,
did.
that blew my mind, because that would have been tough for me to do.
She said to me, although you're standing, but you're not standing alone. And she's right there with me. And so again, there was that, and so much of the book and so much of my journey is about who God brought along the way to help me get there. And so it wasn't something that I did on my own. I'm not just this great, courageous guy. I have a team of people who have encouraged me, have kept me, have helped me to see greatness in myself when I didn't see it in myself. And so I'm eternally grateful. And to get all those details, you gotta grab the book.
You really do.
And I promise you're gonna love it.
And I love that part of the story. It's kind of the romance there. Something for the ladies too,
Yes,
a little romance in
yes.
there. So any advice for someone wanting to play in the big league? That came from Cameron in Washington.
Any advice? I think first and foremost, you got to work hard. I think something that we miss about, just wanting to do anything great, you got to put the work in, you got to put the time in. And then on top of that, I believe that ultimately your purpose and your destiny is in God's hands. And if He has it for you, He has it for you, but you got to be connected to Him. You got to, it's like a relationship. Like one thing that a line in the book is about getting out of the driver's seat of your life. And so if you're driving and you're deciding which way to go, left, right, you're in charge of your destiny. But once you get out of the driver's seat and say, Jesus, you know me, you have my destiny and who I'm supposed to be in your hands, I get out of the driver's seat and I want you to drive, then you're at His mercy and He knows all. And He'll be able to lead you and guide you into who you're supposed to be and who He created you to be. So your vision may be to be this NBA basketball player, but that may not be the vision that God has for you. And I promise you, when you're walking in the purpose that God has given you, it trumps playing ball.
And I love that too, that it wasn't like all smooth sailing. You dealt with some setbacks and had to put that into practice. So the next question comes from Greg in North Carolina.
What up, Greg?
Professional athlete, now author. What's next in your career, Jonathan Judah Isaac?
You know what? There may be an actor in here somewhere. I'm not completely sure, but we've been in talks about turning Why I Stand book into a movie. So what I need you guys to do is go get the book so we can.
Right?
So when people say we need this movie, and so I'm encouraged and I'm inspired to kind of keep the thing going. I wasn't the one who decided that we're going to do this book. I know that it was God-led. And so I'm like, God, what's next? And so we're working on a second book, the possibility of turning this first one into a movie. And again, I just want to continue to grow as a young man and be a beacon of light and hope, pointing people to Christ and people who struggle with the same things that I've struggled with, anxiety and fear and self-insecurity, and not liking yourself because of the way that you view yourself, to see how God views you and ultimately defines your identity and your purpose and confidence in Him, and let that change you over time.
Well, and part of it too, I mean, as far as the actor, you'd have to play yourself, because who are they going to get that's that tall
Right.
to play you?
Exactly. I would definitely play myself, and I'm going to be in acting class.
And part of what I love about that too is I have to say that when you're reading the book, you look at someone like you and you would never imagine that you dealt with insecurity or that you dealt with anxiety. And so that was part of what I really enjoyed about the book, was that, this exterior package does not say insecurity. And it was really kind of encouraging to hear someone like you has dealt with that.
And the one word that comes to mind when I hear that is that it's the truth. And so even when I'm going over my book and I'm writing it and I'm looking at who I've become today, and I go back to the stories of that insecure, passing out in class Jonathan at Florida State on anxiety medication, I'm saying that was me. Yeah. And I can see through the journey of the little steps of God bringing Doc into my life, God bringing these people into my life to help me get to where I am today. It really is the truth. And again, it's that testament and example of what a relationship with Christ can do. And that's why I ultimately believe that He's the answer for the entire world to change the hearts of men.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this next question comes from Dan in your home state of Florida there.
Okay, Dan.
For people who don't lean right or left and they are trying to develop their own beliefs, where's a good place to start? How did you develop your worldview / political view?
Well, what I've tried to do when it comes to politics is not something that I've been well versed in at all. I'm not some politic junkie who knows every law or everything about the Constitution, all that stuff. What I've tried to do is allow my Christianity to guide my principles and what it is that I'm looking for. And so that's how I would say I would start. So whatever your values are, whatever it is that you ultimately believe, use that to guide you. And then be open to grow. You know, people change over time, and there's so many people who thought one way at one point, I did, and who have come into a realization of the truth or a different set of ideals, and they're going a different way. So be open, but I lead with Jesus at the end of the day. I want God to be glorified. I want to see people's lives change, and so that's the way I would lean.
Absolutely, amen. Our next question while you're working on that comes from Eric, again in California. What's your ideal day look like? Probably sleeping in, taking it easy, your wife brings you coffee. Seriously, what does your day look like?
My ideal day, I love basketball.
Yeah.
Like, I really love basketball. Like, it's in my veins. Like, I think about it, I watch it, so my ideal day has to have some sort of getting on the court, and I would say getting on the court alone. No one else there, just me, the ball, the net, the hoop, hearing it swish, hearing it dribble. So that, and then I would say I'm a breakfast guy. I really like breakfast. I really love my French toast, my eggs, my bacon. So having a good breakfast, getting out onto the court, and then just relaxing. I like to chill, maybe watch a movie with my wife. As you see, shout out to her, I'll throw her in there. But yeah.
What are you guys watching?
We're not watching anything specific right now. We wanted to see, we actually didn't see the new Batman. I know
I didn't like it. I got raked over the coals.
Don't tell me anything. We want to see it.
All right, you guys tell me what you think when you see it. So our next question is, what is your favorite memory in your career so far? And that's from, I think it's Caleb in Iowa.
Caleb in Iowa. My favorite memory so far is making it to the playoffs in, I remember what season, maybe in 2018. But with Coach Steve Clifford, we made it to the playoffs, and just having that feeling of the city, like the city on our shoulders. They're going, wow, we won the first game. And from there it didn't end up so well, but definitely being in that series and getting a taste of the playoffs was the highlight. And now, we got the #1 pick, and we're looking forward to have a great season. So I think we're going to have a lot of good memories coming up.
Yeah, I'm a huge basketball fan. I'm looking forward to that.
So you're going to be watching?
I'm going to
hold you to that.
All right, if you're just joining us, we are here live with NBA star and now author Jonathan Isaac.
Come on.
As he answers your questions and autographs copies of his new book, Why I Stand, published by The Daily Wire. If you want to score a signed copy, be sure to head over to premiercollectibles.com/Isaac before the clock runs out. All right, well, let's continue with some more.
I want to say this, y'all. We want this to be the most successful Daily Wire book signing there has ever been. I think there's only been 3. So we have to crush them. So go out, get the book, tell everybody, text 10 friends and say, jump on this live. You need an autographed copy of Why I Stand. It is going to encourage you and inspire you to help you to become who God has created you to be. So go get it. Let's make this thing great.
Absolutely. And spoken like a true athlete, that is like anything can be a competition.
We have to win. This is a battle.
We got to kill Matt Walsh, people. Let's do this.
Not literally, but we need to destroy whatever number they broke. Yeah. We need to break it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this next question comes from Kendall in Georgia.
What up, Kendall?
What gets you through the hard times? How does your faith impact the way you live?
Such a good question. What gets me through the hard times? I would say, first off, having the right people around me. When I hurt my knee, so you guys have to help me paint this picture for you. So I stand in the bubble, right? It happens. There's immense backlash. A lot of people come out, but then there's also
explain the bubble too, because I didn't know what the bubble was until I asked you.
You gotta know what the bubble. But okay,
there could be other girls out there who don't know the bubble.
The NBA bubble was once COVID had struck. The NBA got shut down like mid-season. And then the hope was to bring it back, but they were trying to figure out how to bring it back. And so they thought of maybe the best place is to have a place where you cannot leave. You go in, so that would turn into the Disney bubble. We went into the bubble, you can't leave. And so the moment happens when I stand and all this stuff breaks. Obviously, there's a whole lot of hoopla. And the next game, we're playing against the Sacramento Kings, and I tear my ACL. And so you gotta hear this. I'm like, God, I'm standing for you. This is about you. I'm making it about you. And I know it's about him, but then I injure myself. And so that is a moment where I was like, I don't know what's going on. It was tough. I was obviously in a lot of pain for the next couple of weeks. But it was a hard time because I didn't know what God was up to, but I had the right people around me to encourage me and to keep me focused on the positive. And now being able to look back, I can say, if I did not get injured, there would be no book. And so I'm learning that God always has a plan and a purpose with everything that he does. And so now this book is going to be able to go out and encourage and inspire people all over the world. All over the world. We want it to hit all over the world, not just the USA, but inspire people all over to stand for their faith, to be encouraged, and to ultimately become who God has created them to be. And it's a journey, it's a process. And through this book, you'll learn that it's a process that, going through these hard times, you get better at it. You learn to trust God more and more and more time after time. So God forbid if something happened to me now, but I had a small scare. I had, hurt my right hamstring not too long ago, but I was able to just keep it moving because I've been through these different challenges and I've been able to overcome them by the grace of God. And again, having those right people in my life. And so it's a process.
Well, I don't want to say that the Daily Wire is grateful for you tearing your ACL, but we're glad you're here. Let's just put it that way.
I'm glad I'm here too, man.
All right, your next question comes from Kathy in Chicago, and this is a good follow-up question.
What up,
to
Kathy?
The previous question. How did you and your fiance meet? And she says congratulations on your engagement, but I actually know you are now a newlywed. You're an honest man now.
We are. We are 7 months in. We met in church. And so again, it's another story that if you want the real juice, the real details, you gotta get the book. But we met in church. She was already in church long before me, so she was saved. She was doing her thing, serving the Lord, giving God glory, and I was out there living my life. But I got to church and she just fell for me once I got there. I'm just playing.
I think the message here is go to church and God will give you
to church
a
and God will give
beautiful
you...
spouse. Because I'm just going to say she's beautiful. We met. She's gorgeous.
Yes, she is.
That's not a good reason to go to church. But seriously, can't hurt, right?
Yes, she's amazing. It's been a great 7 months, but a great 4.5 years of knowing her. And we're just excited to continue to live on in marriage and see what God has next.
Yeah, you're all just babies in marriage, newlyweds. All right, so our next question comes from Hannah in New York, and the question is, what's advice that you would give to the younger generation?
That's a good one. To the younger generation.
You are the younger generation.
Right, I know, right? I'm 24 years old. I know I try to come off as more older than that, but I'm not.
You just seem wiser and older because
you got
a lot of poise. Yeah.
The advice that I would give to the younger generation is, as the world gets darker, it's going to become more and more necessary to stand, but it's also going to become harder to stand, and you're going to have to develop a relationship with Christ in order to stand in those times to come. And so I would just encourage them that God is not trying to take anything away from you, and that's something that's in this book as well, is that when I was living my life, doing my thing, I really thought I was living. I thought I had reached the pinnacle of success. I had life figured out. But being able to live these past 4 years in relationship with Christ, my life has never been better and never been the same in contrast. And so when I say that God is not trying to take anything away from you, when I was, out doing my thing, my wife was waiting on me. And now that I see that God was actually trying to get something to me, I'm a happily married man of 7 months and I've just continued to grow. And so I would encourage you that God loves you and he has a plan and a destiny for your life. And if you want to find out what that is, I promise you it's better than what you're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to listen to you preach. I love it. All right, our next question is from James in Texas. And he
Texas.
asked,
Texas. Everything's big in Texas.
The question's actually kind of small, but It's a good question. So, when will we see you back playing on the court?
I know that's a question that a lot of people have. I'm excited to be ready to play for this upcoming season. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling good, and just continue to progress through this rehab and to be ready for next season.
Yeah. Good question, and I'm going to be watching now, so.
Yes.
All right, our next question comes from Rachel in Arkansas. What's the biggest takeaway that you want your readers to gain from this book?
The biggest takeaway that I want the readers to gain from this book, I think there's two. One is that it's a process. Becoming who God has created you to be is a process. It's not something that happens overnight. And also that you need people I think what I love about the story is that it's real. It's not some guy who has it all figured out, that was this courageous guy who just stood for what he believed in. It's a guy who became who he is, and through a process of meeting the right people, God putting these people in his life and ultimately growing. But I think that the one thing that I want people to walk away from this book is that the answer is love. And when I say love, I don't mean love like the world's love. The world's love loves you until you make a mistake or you do something wrong. But encountering the love of God that's unconditional and loves you in spite of your faults, in spite of your just mess, it's freedom and it's peace. And so I've been able to find that. And that's why I believe that if we're able to choose to walk out love in the way Jesus gave his example of love, we can really change the world one person at a time.
Yeah, and part of what I really loved was, one, I got to meet a couple of the people on your team, including Doc.
Yes.
And why I loved that so much was you do read so much about that in the book, and it made me realize, how can we be that person in another person's life?
Right.
Like, he has done so much for you and been so much
Yes.
in your life, but I know that you've meant so much to him. And
Yes.
that really, Doc's story really challenged me as someone who's a little bit on the older side. So I really appreciated that.
Doc is the man, and you guys are gonna learn so much about him in this book. He's the star of the book.
He
And
really
so
is.
I can't wait for everybody to read it and just learn about Doc and learn about his ministry and learn about what he's been doing for the longest time before me. And so I'm just excited about that.
Yeah, I feel like you guys have a book together in you. All right, so our next question comes from Dan, and he asks, do you ever not like being in the NBA? Ooh, that's a good question.
How could you not like being in the NBA? I'd say that the traveling can be a bit grueling, but still, the NBA is great. I get to play the game that I love. I get to have fun with, teammates and everything like that. So no, I don't think there's a time that I just don't want to be an NBA basketball player. It's my dream.
Well, it's hard to, not enjoy living your dream, right?
Right, exactly.
All right, well, just a reminder to all our friends watching us on YouTube right now, if you want to ask Jonathan a question and grab yourself a signed copy of his book, head over to premiercollectibles.com/Isaac. And after you purchase, you can drop a question into the comments. You can maybe just make some comments about how you're feeling about this evening. And we'll move on now to the next portion and get over to that next question, which comes from Karen in Middle Grove, New York. So she says, I love this. The biggest thing for me, she's quoting from the book.
I love this.
The biggest thing for me was just coming to the realization that God loves me for me, that I don't have to perform for his love. I don't have to be perfect for his love, Isaac told the host. And that was the first time that I had the sense of calm and peace. Could you speak to so she's quoting what you and I were just talking about, and she's saying, could you speak to how my 15-year-old son could use his grace to strive for his ideal while knowing you don't have to be perfect, because she's going through those tough teen years with her son.
Yeah, and again, it's a process, but I think the biggest thing for me is that during those ups and downs of Doc didn't know anything about my background. He didn't know that I was so used to performing for love and always needing to step on pins and needles because I was so anxious and fearful. He just loved me. Like he was there, he was constant. And so when I had those times of doing something great, he loved me. And when I had those times of doing something bad or messing up in some area or something like that, he loved me. And over time, I've started to build and kind of grow out of this hole that I was so used to putting myself in and being in. And so I think over time of you just being in your son's life and loving him for him and letting him know that. And Doc would always call me great. He's always called me great from the time, I could have 0 points. I could airball 10 shots and he would say, you're great. The world doesn't know how great you are. And he would tell me something that the world has to meet Jonathan Isaac because of, the person that he believes that I am. But he was just there. He was present. Yeah. And so that's the encouragement that I would give to you for your son. And just watch him grow. You're going to watch him blossom into who God has created him to be. Just continue to point him in that direction.
Well, and I want to say, too, to this mom that there were some moments in the book where, you were definitely struggling and thinking of a certain door that got punched through. So, if a mom is seeing some things, there's growth that comes out of that. And I love that you are so honest about that stuff.
I am the guy who was on anxiety medication while he was playing for Florida State. I was the #1 basketball player in the state of Florida. I was going to go on to be the number 6 pick in the draft, and I was on anxiety medication. And so there is hope and there is freedom. It is a process. So the same guy that you see here today that you think is so cool and all that stuff, not saying maybe
pretty cool,
but
yeah.
but that same guy has struggled, but by the grace of God has grown. And it's a process. So it's not something that you just overcome overnight. It's still something that I have to battle. And one thing that Doc taught me in the book was speaking God's word. So speaking God's word over your son and allowing him to say things to himself in the mirror or before he does something, that's going to be the things that he's going to be able to grab onto and continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so our next question is, let's see, how does it feel to play in Orlando? How do you feel after receiving the first pick?
Yo, I'm excited. I'm excited about getting the number 1 pick, and I was excited before that. You know, one thing that has been constant with me, Markel, other guys on the team, is our mindset of saying we're going to turn this thing around. Yeah, we have some growing pains. Yeah, we have a young team, but we're gonna bring a championship to the city of Orlando, and that's at the forefront of our minds. And so to hear that we get the number 1 pick, it only solidifies that even more. It only makes me more hungry and more eager to get back around this team and shoot for the moon.
Yeah, absolutely. How's your hand doing?
I'm doing okay.
Hanging in there?
I think there's enough time in between each one to where my hand like relaxes a little bit.
Right. I'm trying to give you a little break.
No,
now
you've been good. You've been great.
All right. Our next question comes from JT in Missouri.
JT, what up?
Favorite? That feels like the kind of name
JT
you need to say like that,
JT
right?
in the house.
JT. All right. Favorite memory of playing in college?
Ooh. Favorite memory of playing college ball? Okay, I have 2. All right?
Okay.
So me and Jason Tatum, we have the same agent. And so me and him are good friends. But when we were playing Duke, I got a real nice block on him at the rim. He tried to dunk on me, and I got a block on him. And I would say my second, we were playing Virginia, and my teammate Dwayne Bacon went on a tear in the second half, and then ended up hitting the game-winning shot. And it was like miraculous to see. Like he put everybody on his shoulders and won the game for us, and that was one of the highlights of the season that I remember.
Okay, you are a better person than me. That one of your favorite memories is somebody else's success.
Well, it was big for us. Like Virginia was a tough game, and I wasn't doing everything that I could have done to win, but he picked up my slack.
I love that, though. That is very cool. So let's see. We've got a question here from Isaac in Bloomington, and he asks, on a lighter note, are you a fan of Star Wars?
Isaac, what the heck? I'm just playing. No, I'm not. I'm not.
What?
And it's not because
We're done here. No.
it's because part of me feels like the quality that movies are right now, to go back and watch Star Wars, if I had saw it in the time, like I know it's older than me, but if I had saw it closer to when I was younger, I could really appreciate it. But because I feel like it's just the where cinema is right now, to go back and watch, I wouldn't appreciate it. I just wouldn't. And so I haven't watched any. So maybe I just need to sit down and watch one, and then I can really give you my opinion on it.
All right.
But I'm sorry, Isaac. Forgive me, we have the same name.
I know.
So you got to give me some points there.
Yeah, this is the first time that I'm deeply disappointed in you, Jonathan. All right, our next question is from Telmo, and it is, what if we don't believe in God? How do you think we should approach that sense of the book?
I think that's honest. I think the way you should approach the book is in the same way you would approach anything, with an open mind and an open heart. And maybe in it you find something that you're looking for. And so I don't think to read this book there needs to be a prerequisite of believing in God or believing in Jesus. Just read the book like you would read any book.
Right.
And I believe that my life is a testimony of having a relationship with God, the grace of God, the love of Jesus Christ. And ultimately, if you leave this book, all you can leave it with is saying, I don't believe that what Jonathan Isaac is saying in this book is true. I think he made it up or something like that. Or you leave with it by saying, this guy has had an experience, and this is his experience, and you can go for it or you cannot. But there's one thing that I think about in the Bible where Jesus said he came that we might have life and have life more abundantly. And I've seen my life become abundant once I started following him, believing in him, living by his word. And I promise you that if you give God a chance, he'll open that same door to you. And there's another verse in the Bible that comes to my mind that says, taste and see that the Lord is good. Give him a try.
Right.
Give him a try, and we'll see. But read the book and talk to me when it's done.
Right, that. And you know what's funny too, as you're talking about that, I keep coming back to this, that look, you weren't this continual sort of very pious, maybe
Yes.
churchy person,
Yes.
you might say. That was not your story. So people need to know that about this book.
Exactly.
That it really shows how you got here, but you didn't start here.
Yes, that's why you have to read the book. I came to faith. It's not something that I just had all the time. I grew up in church, but I was the first one to say, get me away from all of this church stuff. I want to go out and live my life and do what I want to do. But God brought me back.
And to his point, you also went searching. You weren't just
Yes.
totally, I believe.
Yes.
I mean, you went looking into apologetics and asking tough questions.
There you go. So again, I don't want to get too much of the story away, but I had a point where I was binging Christian apologetics, like going online, watching all these different speakers and authors and reading and all that different stuff, but I was searching.
Yeah.
And so to have somebody in the NBA who most people think has life figured out, what is he doing searching for meaning or searching for more? It was because even though I had all the exterior stuff, I was empty. And so again, I would implore you and admonish you to read the book and find out for yourself about who this guy Jonathan Isaac is and how the heck he got here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, our next question comes from Caleb in California. This Caleb asks, what are daily practices that help you to stay afloat amidst fame, a busy schedule, societal pressures, etc.? So what are your daily practices?
I'd say one is having a wife.
Wives are good that way.
Having a wife keeps you humble. She knows me. That's one. I would say, again, not to even sound too churchy, but just prayer. I think prayer is just intimate time and having a conversation with God about what's going on in my life, being honest with Him and just talking to Him about my struggles and where I'm at. That helps me keep me afloat. And again, having people in my life, having Doc in my life as accountability and someone who checks on me, makes sure I'm okay, someone who hears behind me saying I'm fine, helps keep me afloat as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you still hanging there?
I'm okay. I'm good.
You need to do some stretches.
I think I stretched enough beforehand. But look at that. That's a good looking signature. Ain't
That is a good looking signature. I feel like you practiced this. Did you practice it?
Yes, I've had to sign quite a bit of stuff.
All right, our next question comes from Cheryl in Michigan. Where's a place in the world? I think I know the answer to this one, even before I ask, but let's see. Where's a place in the world that you want to travel to?
What did you think?
I was going to say France because you were supposed to go for your honeymoon.
You're going to make me say France now because my wife is here.
I know where his wife wants to go.
If I had to pick one place to travel to, I would say Dubai.
Dubai, really?
I want to experience Dubai. I've heard great things. I know it's kind of fun and a lot going on. I want to experience Dubai.
I've heard it's not that much fun. I want to go there.
Yeah, I want to experience Dubai.
No, it just sounds hot to me is more the issue.
Really?
Yeah, isn't it supposed to be really hot in Dubai?
Yeah, but they say it's way more advanced than we are right now.
Okay, you must know more about Dubai than I do.
You need to go to Dubai.
All right, I'll keep an open mind
I'll
about
FaceTime you
Dubai.
when I'm there and show you.
All right, do. Send me your pictures, your selfies. All right, so our next question comes from Harrison in North Dakota. Are you going to continue? North Dakota.
People live in North Dakota.
People live in Dubai.
I'm just playing.
Will you continue to write and speak?
I'm playing Harrison. I know people live in North Dakota. I absolutely will continue to write. I will absolutely continue to speak. And ultimately, I will continue to stand. Again, it's something that I believe in, and I know that there are people who need to be encouraged to stand, people who need to be encouraged to write, and people who need to be encouraged to speak. And so I'm going to try my best by the grace of God to keep going. And you guys be along for the ride.
Awesome. All right, our next question comes from Zeke in Albuquerque. What's your favorite Bible verse?
Where are all you guys coming from? Albuquerque, North Dakota.
Listen, everyone watches
this.
the Daily Wire.
Everybody's
all
here.
Over.
What up?
The whole world.
In the house. My favorite Bible verse, I have two.
Okay.
One, I don't know where it is. I'm not a Bible scholar. I just know the verse. It says, "Herein is love, not that we first loved God, but that God first loved us." And for me, that's always a reminder when I'm interacting with people, when I feel like I'm the worst person in the world, when I did something wrong or anything like that. It just, again, when I'm dealing with people who may be living a different lifestyle than me, it's the principle and the truth that God loved us first. And that the only reason why we're saved, the only reason why we're here is because He loved us first. So we should love first, and that's our example, and how we can always kind of live with that love first mindset. Remember that God first loved us, and then I would say my second verse is that all things work together for the good to them that love God and are called according to his purpose.
Yeah.
I love that one because, again, this is a
Romans
story.
8:28, by the way.
Oh, snap. We got a Bible scholar in the building. Yeah, for me, I love it because, again, it's a book. It's a journey of time, and there's moments in your life or in your journey where you can look back and say, oh, that was terrible, that was wrong, I messed up, or that was a terrible time in my life, but God really does use it all for the good. And again, there's that prerequisite to them that love God. And so people who are trying to strive to please God and to do what God wants for them in their lives, he has to make everything work for your good because he said it. And so I've experienced that with this book. I've experienced that with my journey. And so I know it to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, our next question comes from Jim in California. And he asks, how did your teammates react to your not kneeling?
California? You know this is the Daily Wire?
We've got a few people in California.
I'm just playing. I'm just playing. My teammates, again, it was an emotional moment. It was an emotional moment. There were guys who really did believe in what they were fighting for, what they were kneeling for. And so to see me stand, there were some heated moments, and there were guys who didn't agree with what I had to say, or didn't even respect the fact that I did what I did. But again, we were able to agree to disagree and leave them with the fact that I respected your decision to kneel, and I need that same respect in return. I believe I deserve it. And so yeah, but it's people, and you work it out and you talk it through and you figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, as you can see, Jonathan has been signing copies of his new book, Why I Stand, and he's trying to sign them as fast as people are buying them, but he's going to need a timeout sooner or later. So if you want to ensure you get yourself an autographed copy before they're all gone, head over to premiercollectibles.com/Isaac right now.
Right now. Right now.
All right, so I've got a couple of questions that I want to ask you, Jonathan. That I actually started jotting them down as I was reading the book, and one of the things that you mentioned in the book was when you made that decision not to kneel, you could hear the sound of keys on keyboards in your head because you were imagining these stories that were going to get written in the media about you. So my question is, were there any after the fact that stood out to you where you saw some headline and went, oh, that one hurt? Or that you went, that person got it?
Well, I'd say just the name calling. I mean, it is what it is. People are going to call you names and all that stuff. But again, like in the moment of standing, I'm already thinking about when this happens, people are going to be on Twitter, people are going to be on social media, and they're going to be talking about me and almost making a judgment call about who I am and what it is that I believe from this. But at the end of the day, it's something, again, that my pastor says all the time, is that the truth will outlive a lie. And so I know who I am, I know what I'm standing for, and I have to be okay with people disagreeing with me, with people not liking me, and not liking what I have to say, but that doesn't stop me from being willing to say it. And again, that comes from trusting God and building that courage and confidence to be who you are and who he created you to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, for no other reason, people should get the book for all of the things that Doc poured into you. So he's got some great one-liners too. So he was just there with the advice. You're going to get some stuff poured into you too reading this book for sure. Absolutely. All right, so our next question is, one of the things I loved in the book is that you kept talking about your desire to be liked, your need for approval. Yet you did this thing that you knew was not going to get you approval. In fact, it was going to lead to disapproval. So how do you explain that?
Well, again, I just think it accounts to the transformation. The book takes you through my early years and growing up and how I came to become really self-conscious and anxious around other people. I went from Bronx, New York, so growing up in the Bronx of New York and moving to Naples, Florida. So I go from a predominantly black place to a predominantly white place, and I struggled to fit in. I took on the nickname Ethiopia really quickly because I was so skinny. And so I struggled in my mind. I struggled with trying to fit in with these kids. And so what I did, I started to model my behavior around getting people to like me. And so I would say what I thought they wanted me to say, or say what I needed to say. And that's when I found basketball. And in basketball, I could put all my identity in basketball because it started to get me everything that I wanted. Yeah. People liking me, the girls coming around me a little bit because of the hooper that I was becoming. But again, I think it speaks to the transformation that God has had on my life. And again, experiencing the love of Christ, it's like I trust it. And so even though in the back of my mind, those feelings are still there and that anxiety is still there a little bit, I'm like, you know what, no, I trust what God has said. I know that this is the truth, and I know that he's ultimately the answer for the world, and I don't care if people are not going to like me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, our next question comes from New York, and I think it says Cameron. I'm a little red, it's a little hard to see, but
Cameron.
Hey, Cameron. So if you could play any sport other than basketball for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I would be the most dominant tennis player in the world. If
Really?
I think this is just me in my head. If I played tennis when I was younger, I think I would beat Nadal. Like I would be so tough to beat because you're not gonna send him back my serve.
Do really tall guys play tennis? Like
not really
7
tall,
feet
not really
guys
tall,
play
but
tennis?
and I'm pretty mobile too.
Yeah.
I can move, and so I think that if I started young, I'd be a great tennis player as well.
All right, well, our next question comes from Dave. Are you ready for this?
Yep.
You keep wanting to comment on the locations. How about Canada?
Oh my
David
goodness.
from Canada.
You guys are killing it.
Where do you go when you need to just take a break?
Where do I go when I just need to take a break? My bed. I don't know. I think like, again, I don't want to sound super cliche, but I mean, church is an escape for me from time to time, and just kind of being able to get away from the world and get around people who are going through the same thing I'm going through, and trying to make it and push and to find encouragement and strength. And so that's a place for me for sure, where I go to just kind of be refreshed and renewed. And then, just little moments of like getting out of town and being able to breathe a little bit and kind of getting away from basketball even, helps me out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, another thing that kind of struck me in the book that I would love to just take a brief pause and ask you about was when people were bringing up the Black Lives Matter issue and they were speaking to you about why you weren't going to kneel. One of the reporters asked you, well, don't you care about Black lives?
Right.
How are you feeling inside when you hear that question and you're like, what do you think?
Well, it makes you cringe because I'm pretty sure that I appear to be black. So of course I believe that Black Lives Matter. And again, that's one of the first things that I said. Of course I believe that Black Lives Matter. I just believe that this is really the answer, and I don't believe that kneeling for the national anthem and wearing a Black Lives Matter T-shirt go hand in hand with supporting Black lives. And so many people were made to feel that this was the only way to support Black lives, and it's not. And so and I think that question to me, I think the first question was even better phrased as, do you even believe that Black lives matter?
Wow.
And so to me, it shows I don't want to call anybody crazy, but it shows the craziness of the moment, to where wearing a T-shirt and kneeling for the national anthem was the same thing as supporting Black lives. And so if you didn't, there's no way you could support Black lives. And so I think that, what started as a symbol of supporting Black lives turned into an order, and an order to follow, for everybody to follow. And so I didn't.
Okay, quick follow-up before we get back to our reader questions. But I do want to know, when you heard that about Black Lives Matter and there was all that criticism, now you see some stories in the news, and some of them are not very positive stories about what that organization has done with some of the funds that were entrusted to them. Do you feel like, I don't know, maybe God was protecting your instinct or giving you special discernment? That I just wonder what you think now that the whole world is starting to go, gosh, maybe there were some issues there with that organization. Not with the idea that Black Lives Matter, but with this particular political organization.
Right, I think it's tragic. I think it's terrible. I think it's awful. And there were people who believe that Black Lives Matter, who are writing for this organization and wanting it to be the end all be all to saving the black community. But I think, again, it just points to that, ultimately saving any human being, black, white, and different, is not going to come through an organization. It's not going to come through a movement. It's not going to come through legislation. It's not going to come through a president. It's going to come through the hearts of men being changed, and being able to see each other the way God sees us and God deals with us, being able to handle each other in that way. And so that's exactly why I said, even though this moment is happening and this movement is happening, it's not the answer. And so many people portrayed it to be. And so again, looking at my life and saying, the gospel has changed me, the gospel has helped me, that's what I'm going to stand up and say. I'm not going to go along with anybody's narrative, and I'm going to share that message.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, our next question comes from Florida, from Ben.
Florida!
Yeah, the hometown.
In the house.
And he wants to know, what's your favorite book? I mean, besides this book, which is an amazing
My
book that you need to
favorite
get.
book is Why I Stand.
What's your second favorite book?
My second favorite book, there's a book by Frank Turek. And it, I forget the name, but I think it's called Stealing from God. Stealing from God. And it's a Christian apologetics book, so I don't want to get too in the weeds.
That's some heavy stuff,
But it's called Stealing from God. The premise is pretty much that, like, you know, people that argue against God have to steal from him in order to do it. You know, so steal the, you know, moral objectivity and other things in order to argue against God in the first place. And so I enjoyed it.
I'm gonna have to check. I've not read that one.
Yeah.
Sometimes apologetics, you know, you gotta have a really sharp mind for that stuff. All right, well, our next question comes from Steve in Los Angeles. And he said, see, this is where I live. These are the kind of questions I can hang with. You said you wanted to watch the new Batman movie. All right, what's your favorite superhero movie?
You know what I like about this question? Because this tells me, what was his name again?
Steve.
Steve. This tells me that Steve was watching.
He was paying
and
attention.
He went and got a book in order to ask this question. And so, Steve, I like you. Be like Steve.
Right?
Be like Steve and go get a book right now.
Steve
my
gets an A.
My favorite superhero movie is Avengers: Civil War.
Interesting. Why?
I love that movie. Like, if you take the end part of the movie, and there's a message in it about revenge. And so I forget what it's actually said, but there's this guy who, obviously, Sokovia gets destroyed because of what the Avengers did at first. And so he does all this work in order to fight and get back to being able to tear the Avengers apart. And so you have Captain America, Iron Man, and his friend, Captain America's friend,
Bucky.
Bucky with the steel arm, fighting because of, you know, this person that's, you know, throwing a thorn inside of their relationship. But I thought they just shot it so well. I thought it was really poetic in the way that, you know, Iron Man was like, my father made that shield and leave it behind and all that. And ultimately for them to regroup again was dope. So I think they did that great.
All right, Captain America: Civil War. All right, we have 10 minutes left. So
Only 10 minutes?
Yes, it's gone so fast. And if you're just joining us, we are here live with NBA star and now author Jonathan Isaac, as he answers your questions and autographs copies of his new book, Why I Stand, published by the Daily Wire. If you want to score a signed copy, be sure to head over to premiercollectibles.com/Isaac before that clock runs out. All right, let's move on to some more questions and some more books. So
Serena.
Our next question comes from Serena in Georgia. When you were growing up, who did you most want to be like?
Ooh, when I was growing up.
I know all the answers because I've read the book, but anyway.
What am I going to say?
I thought you were going to say your dad.
Yes, make it, let's go. So again, you got to read the book to get the 411, but my dad, he was like Superman, like literally like Superman. Like I didn't know anything about outside of New York. I didn't know anything about outside of my family. So my dad was just like the guy. He was so present, and he was very strong. So he would always like pick me up and do push-ups with me on his back. And so I always like admired and looked up to him.
I'm feeling like I'm getting all A's here. I don't know.
You're crushing it.
I studied up.
You're crushing it.
All right, our next question comes from Paul in Tennessee. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Do you believe in aliens? And a lot of aliens in the news right now. And would you ever want to make contact with one of them if you did?
Wow. Okay, do I believe in aliens? And I actually did see a little bit of the stuff that's going on. Me personally, I don't believe in aliens. So that's just me. And, you know, but at the end of the day, if somebody zaps somebody from out of the sky, then you got to believe in aliens.
Right.
But no, I don't believe in aliens. And I love the idea of us being the only life in the universe. And that's just me. I love that idea because I think it, again, speaks to the importance of us living lives of purpose and responsibility because we're all that's here. And so that's just me.
Yeah, I love that. I hadn't really thought about that question, to be honest with you. All
Do you believe in aliens?
You know, probably not. But if they show up, I'll revise
then
that.
we gotta believe. We gotta believe in if they show up.
All right, our next question comes from, I don't know if it's Vlad or Vlad. It sounds very exotic.
Vlad.
Vlad from Minnesota. How do you get in the zone before a game?
I'm big on my music, and so my wife is a Christian artist. She's a dope Christian artist. She's a rapper, she's a singer,
yeah.
she does it all. And she actually made me a song, and it's called Champion. And it goes like, you can do anything, something like that. And I love it. And so I listen to it before every game. And then I have a pretty, strict ritual of calling my pastor before every game and just, him praying with me and just covering the game and making sure I get out good and go like that. But that's how I get locked in.
Wow, yeah, it's hard not to get, psyched up for a song that was written especially for you.
Right. It's dope though. Like the lyrics are fire. Like it always gets me inspired and locked in, and I'm like, yo, she believes in me.
All right, so if you buy 10 books, you get a copy of Jonathan's wife's song. Let's say that.
Come on.
I like that. All right, let's talk about, was it difficult for you while writing this book to be as authentic and transparent as you were? Because you really did reveal a lot of things that, it's going to be a little humbling, right? That you share some things, and I went, was it difficult first to do that? And were there any things in the book that you went, when I read it back, I felt like maybe I wished I hadn't shared that?
Nothing that I wish I hadn't shared. Like I want it to be real because I know that real people are going to read this book. And so, again, I didn't want to portray myself as anything that I'm not. I know that my journey has been a process, and through anybody's life, there's ups and downs and rights and wrongs and messing up and getting back up and fighting to become better. And so I wanted to show the truth of my story. And listen, I couldn't put everything in there.
Right.
And so as authentic as you think this isn't half the story of, all the details behind the scenes and all that stuff, but it's enough.
Sequel.
Yeah.
You got to save some for the sequel. All right, our next question comes from McKenna in Delaware.
McKenna, I like that name.
I do too, that's really pretty. McKenna, what is your favorite TV show?
My favorite TV show, I don't really watch TV anymore, but I had a time of like binge watching Modern Family.
Oh yeah.
I love Phil. Phil is just he's just like sarcastic and witty and kind of that like silly dad, funny, awkward. And so he was my favorite character in the show, and I kind of got caught in that like binge watching Modern Family.
So are you more of a comedy guy or?
Yeah, comedy, but like I can appreciate what's going on behind the comedy. Like something that's just comedy is great, but like to me, especially with Phil, there's like a wittiness to the comedy where I like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we are just almost out of time, guys. We have 5 more minutes left. So if you want to get those signed books, we're coming down to the very wire. I'm going to give you one more book here.
Oh, it's the last one.
You know what? I would say one of the moments that really made me laugh, and this is not a big spoiler in the book, but I did love when you talked about when you were first getting scouted to go into college ball, and you had to ask what a conference was.
Yes, I knew nothing. So I like to watch basketball, and I think, again, it speaks to the fact that I never saw myself playing basketball in college professionally because I just never looked it up or anything like that. So I'm going to tell a little bit of the story, but I get a call from some of the biggest schools in the country. One night I got an offer from Kentucky and Louisville in the same night. And so I was on the phone with one coach, and he's like, do you know where our school is? And I'm like, no. Do you know what conference we're in? Conference? What's a college conference? And so I had a lot of learning to do.
Yeah. Well, what was nice was in those passages, if you were not, let's say, the most sports-oriented person, you educated me while I was reading it. So
you don't have to feel bad.
All right, we are coming down to the wire. It's our very last question, and it comes from Stephen in Tennessee. At what age did you know, this is a good one to end on, that the NBA was going to be your future?
I knew, and people may think I'm lying, I didn't know until college that NBA was going to be my future. And there's a little story in the book, with Coach Gates, where I'm like, I want to come back to school. Like, I was not ready to be an NBA basketball player, so I'm ready to come back to school. I'm going to Florida State for a second year, and he's like, I will pack your bags myself. You are not coming back to school next year. You're going to the NBA. And that's when I was like, I'm going to be an NBA basketball player. I
loved how the English teacher, too, said, your grade's kind of not doing so good. He said, I'm going to the NBA. She's like, don't worry about it. You're good. Yeah. You don't need to pass English.
Exactly.
And yet, But it's an amazing book, so clearly you did okay in your English class. All right, well, bam! It is the final buzzer, and we're all out of time for tonight. So let me check our official stat sheets.
How do we do?
How do we do? Yeah, we did good. We did excellent, Jonathan. And it looks like Jonathan answered a lot of questions and signed a whole lot of books.
Yes.
You're going to want to get this book. So well done, Jonathan. Well done on signing. Well done on the book. And his book, once again, is called Why I Stand. And if you want to get your hands on an autographed copy, right now is the time to buy it before they're all gone. I'm going to make Jonathan stay here and sign a few more.
Yes,
so,
I will do that.
If you're a fan of hearing and supporting voices like Jonathan's that don't always fall in line with the mainstream narrative, consider becoming a Daily Wire member. The Daily Wire is America's fastest growing conservative media platform and countercultural outlet for news, opinion, entertainment, and now, of course, sports. So head on over to dailywire.com/subscribe and sign up today. Well, that's going to do it for us. Jonathan is going to hit the ice bucket for that signing wrist.
Yes.
And he's going to take a break. But absolutely, congrats on the book, Jonathan. Thank you for being here. And we wish all of you, and you especially, Jonathan, the best in your upcoming season and in all of your future endeavors. And we hope there's some more here with the Daily Wire. Meanwhile, for all of you book fanatics at home, the party doesn't have to end just yet. Catch the Daily Wire's own superstar, Ben Shapiro, as he explores the themes and present-day parallels within history's most iconic novels. Third Thursday Book Club is not your average book club, but it is kicking off its latest chapter right now, so head on over to dailywire.com. Thanks so much for being here. Good night, everyone.
Peace.
Peace.
We did it.
Can I pull that off? Peace.
You did it. You look very cool.